Warriors, this is the Spartan Underground. And now, your host, James 300 Foster.
What's up, Spartan Warriors? It's May 22nd, 2016. This is episode 7 of the Spartan Underground podcast, and it happens to be my first ever Q&A episode where I gathered a bunch of questions from Facebook and Instagram and all the social media platforms, and I'm going to be addressing them today on the podcast. I'm also excited to announce that Impact Custom Mouthguards is now an official sponsor of the Spartan Underground podcast. Impact is the official mouthguard for USA Boxing in the Olympics, and I had an opportunity to try one of their custom grappling mouthguards, and I'm telling you, I've been doing martial arts for almost 30 years now, and nothing comes close to this mouthguard. I used to never wear mouth guards while I would grapple because I felt it affected my breathing, but with this mouth guard, it's super thin, it stays in place, and I really don't even notice it's there while I'm rolling. So I'm super excited to have them on board with the podcast and super excited to be able to use their product and spread the word about it because I really believe it's the best mouth guard for grappling out there. Beats the heck out of the Boil and Bite and all the other custom mouth guards I've tried before. So if you go over and visit impactmouthguards.com, you can use the code SPARTAN10 to get a $10 discount off of your custom mouthguard order. So I definitely recommend you do that. Check them out. And I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. And as always, this episode and every episode of the Spartan Underground is sponsored by Show You Roll. Show You Roll produces simply the best jiu-jitsu uniforms on the market. Have a great group of people that's behind the brand and do all sorts of amazing things to benefit people within the jiu-jitsu community on top of making amazing high-quality uniforms. Super stylish, super good fit. I hope you guys go check them out over on showyouroll.com. That's SHOYOROLL.com. Check them out today, and hopefully you can score one to try out on your own. I'd like to take a moment to point out some of the causes that I'm involved with and super passionate about. Mission 22. Check out mission22.com. What Mission 22 does is they help raise awareness about veteran suicide. 22 veterans commit suicide every day. It's a huge issue here, not only in the U.S., but all across the world for people who have served and people who are serving. And it's definitely something that we need to raise awareness about and do everything we can to help end that. So I encourage you to check out Mission 22. They do a lot of great work to help raise awareness and try to help end veteran suicide. Also, while you're out there, I encourage you to check out the We Defy Foundation over at wedefyfoundation.org. What We Defy does is they work with jiu-jitsu training facilities across the U.S. and people with a disability rating who are dealing with PTSD and injuries that they sustain during active duty can go on there and they can apply to be an official We Defy athlete. And when they get on there and apply, once their application is approved, the We Defy Foundation will pay for their training at one of the select We Defy facilities in their area. So very awesome. Jiu-jitsu has been shown to be incredibly effective therapy for people from all different walks of life, and especially those dealing with PTSD and dealing with disabilities. So definitely check out We Defy Foundation as well as mission22.com. Okay, that's enough talking from me. Without any further ado, let's get to the first Q&A episode of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. Be well. What's up, guys? First ever Q&A episode of the Spartan Underground today. Really excited to get going on this. Also, the first time I'm videotaping the podcast. Have my Show Your Roll collection sparkling behind me in the background. So anyway, let's get started on this. Got a great question from Mike Y. The question is, etiquette for visiting academies in town or out of town, or having to switch academies due to a new job, schedule, moving, etc. So that's a great question, Mike. Etiquette for visiting academies around town. I always just ask that my students check with me first, and also reach out to the other academy ahead of time and make sure that they're okay with having visitors. That's, if you're in town, I would always make sure that you run it by your instructor, because every school is different and they have different rules and customs. And, bottom line is some places are more cool than others about not only allowing their students to visit other academies, but also having visitors to their academy. So it's always good to reach out and check, make sure that they're open to having visitors. And when it comes to having to switch academies due to your job or moving, whatever it may be, the bottom line is you have to do what's right for you. So like everything, communication is the key. You need to communicate with your instructor, let them know the reason why you're having to move on. And if they're not cool and don't understand that, then you're better to move on anyway, because really you're not training under someone with the right type of attitude if they can't understand that you just no longer can make it. With that said, you have to look and see, are you being realistic about why you have to leave? If your new job is or your new location where you're living is only taking you 10 minutes further away, and you train at a wonderful academy, do you really want to give that wonderful academy up out of convenience, or would it be worth it to drive that extra 10 minutes and still train at a wonderful place? So at the end of the day, you ultimately someone in that situation needs to do what's best for them. And like I said, any instructor worth their salt, or whatever you want to use, whatever expression you want to use, they should be understanding of your situation and have your best interest in mind. All right. Next question from Tiago A. Is there a tangible benefit to bowing and old martial arts traditions? If so, what are they? Wasn't BJJ so effective because the founders weren't holding on to tradition? Should it be let go, or does it make a real difference? That's another great question. With any of these, I can only speak from my personal experience, so keep in mind that anybody that tries to convince you too much that they have all the answers or the only answer, you might want to be a little wary of that person. I can only give you my opinion based on my experience, having almost 30 years of martial arts training and over 20 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. I've had a lot of experiences over the years, so I feel like I can speak to some of these things, but again, my answer isn't the only one and may not necessarily be the only correct answer. So is there a tangible benefit? I would say yes. At the end of the day, it's a Jiu-Jitsu academy. It's not a club where people can come in and do whatever they want. So I think having some traditions or structure is very valuable and beneficial. With that said, I think it can be taken to the extreme, and some places are too traditional. So I think you have to walk that fine line and make sure that you're having structure but not being overly traditional, because I do think that can turn a lot of people off. But there are people that also look for that. So ultimately, you have to try a lot of different academies and find the one that's the best fit for you. And as to whether BJJ was effective because the founders weren't holding on to tradition, that's actually false. I mean, a lot of the old academies that I trained at back in the day were super traditional, coming from that background, and like way more traditional than anything that you see today, down to what color uniform you can wear, bowing on and off the mat, bowing to each other, how you dress each other, bowing to the samurai ghosts at the four corners of the mat, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I think that, and it's not for me to say it's crazy, but you see what I'm saying about, more extreme old school traditions. That's kind of how everything tended to be until people started to open up their own academies and jiu-jitsu became more widespread. And some people, they didn't come from a traditional martial arts background. A lot of jiu-jitsu people, jiu-jitsu's been the only martial art that they've been in. So maybe when they open their academy, they don't go out of their way to include those things. And that's fine if you want to have a kind of a club environment and a little bit more unstructured, but I definitely see the benefit in having structure for your students. And ultimately, bowing to me is just a sign of respect. So we bow out at the beginning or bow in at the beginning of class and out at the end of the class. So to me, that's not too traditional. Just something I like to do. Paying our respects to each other before and after class. I don't think that's too much, and I think it just provides that little bit of structure that people deep down maybe subconsciously crave. So to me, that's the difference that it makes, and why I prefer to incorporate that into my academy personally. Aaron D., my stalker. Just kidding, Aaron. Aaron always supports my seminars. He's a great guy, trains here locally, and shows up at my seminars when I'm out of state, and I can't thank him enough for the support. I love having him show up, and it's always great to see his smiling face. Aaron asks, guidance for new BJJ practitioners considering their first competition, first seminar, or first visit to another academy. The last part, refer to my answer to Mike's question. Definitely reach out to the academy. Always go in humble, always go in respectful. Always ask what their traditions are, what their rules are. And like I said, check ahead of time. Make sure they're cool with people showing up and visiting. And the nice thing about jiu-jitsu is, I would say 99.9% of schools out there are very cool with having visitors from other academies. To your first part, guidance to new BJJ practitioners considering their first competition, realize that it's not that big of a deal. I think a lot of us, we have this expectation and this vision of what a competition is going to be in our mind, and we blow it way out of proportion, make it way scarier than it actually is, and put too much pressure on ourselves. I know I did back in the day. I would put so much pressure on myself. I would say, man, my instructor's going to disown me if I lose. And then when I had my academy was just starting, I would think that if I lost my match, that all my students were going to quit. And we build all these unrealistic things in our mind that are so far from the truth. And really, your instructor and everybody's proud of you just for getting in there and pushing yourself and stepping onto the mats in the competition. That is, if you have a good instructor and you're not at like some kind of Karate Kid-ish Cobra Kai type dojo where you're going to get beat up if you lose the competition. But far from the truth. You end up going out there, learning, win, lose, draw. You're going to have a great time. You're going to take things away from it. And I would say don't blow it up in your mind. And also make sure that you train properly for it. And that you go in there realizing that it's not the end of the world if you lose. There's an old Randy Couture quote that I heard somewhere a long time ago where basically he said that he would ask himself in his mind, if I lose this fight, is it going to be the worst thing that ever happened in my life? And man, The answer is going to be no. It is not going to be the worst thing that's ever happened in your life. So it kind of puts it into perspective. And also, don't be afraid to admit if you're nervous and all of that. I mean, and once you admit to yourself, yeah, I'm nervous, you got nowhere but forward to go from there. So, but I would say don't put too much pressure on yourself and go in there for the fun and the experience and to learn. Ultimately, it's all experience. And especially if you're brand new and a white belt, like, man, no pressure at all. If you're getting out there the first time competing and you're a black belt, yeah, it might be a little more pressure and might be a little more things going through your mind. But as a white belt or someone new like blue belt going into a competition, and just relax and have a good time. Make sure you put it into perspective. First seminar, depending on what kind of seminar you're going to, always ask ahead of time if it's okay to videotape, if it's okay to take notes. There's practitioners out there that when they teach a seminar, they won't allow notes, which I think is kind of silly, because if people are paying good money to attend your seminar, they should be able to at least write notes and be able to remember what they learned. I understand the whole no videotaping thing. I personally allow everybody to videotape at my seminars because I want them to take away and remember what they learned that day. So I just ask that they don't, create a DVD and start selling it without getting my permission first, or put anything on YouTube that I don't approve. I like to ask for them to get my approval first, and make sure that they only use it for themselves, is what I'm trying to say. So I hope that helps, Aaron. I think you already know that because you do a lot of seminars, but that's a great question. Let's see, who's next? We've got Kyle E. Kyle says, so what would you say about a white belt seeing moves on the internet and practicing them in an open mat session? Is it okay, or should we stick to the curriculum that is taught in class? With my current situation, there isn't much more I can do but watch videos and dream about rolling, hopefully soon. Kyle's just coming off a lower back surgery, so he's got to be really careful. He has been coming into class, but definitely can't roll. That's a great question. I would definitely say drilling things at open mat is awesome. Watching stuff online isn't bad. It's just nowadays there's so much information out there. You got to really be careful it's coming from a quality source. And you also have to make sure that you're not trying to practice too many things. Pick one thing and drill it over and over and over and over until it's a reflex. You don't even have to think to apply the technique. A lot of people, they become collectors of moves. I actually talked about this in class today. We become collectors of moves, Oh, I keep getting caught in the armbar. I need to learn another armbar escape. And then you learn 5 different armbar escapes, but you still keep getting caught in the armbar. And so with those guys, I like to say, well, why don't we look at why you're getting caught in the armbar and fix that? And then we can have our worst case scenario move or to use to get when we're already caught in the armbar to get out. So I think it's important to really narrow down your focus, but definitely if you follow that, definitely beneficial to drill during open mat. I don't think you need to always stick to the curriculum that's taught in class. We don't have a strict curriculum, so if you want to get in and drill a move that we worked that week, that's cool too, but definitely can do your own thing and work on another aspect of your game. So I hope that helps you, Kyle. I want to see you in there. I want to see you practicing. That's the main thing, getting on the mat and doing what you can to be there and be in that wonderful training environment while your back heals up. All right, let's see. Wow, we've got a 5-parter here from Tony W. Tony's a great friend of mine and an amazing martial artist himself of many, many years. holds black belts in multiple different styles, and is an awesome purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Let's see. He says, what should be the instructor and student relationship? I think it needs to be one of respect, and that works both ways. So the student shouldn't just be expected to blindly respect the instructor just because they're the instructor. What I mean by that is, if the instructor is not treating them with respect, they don't need to be expected to blindly follow and respect that person. It's a two-way street. If I treat my students with respect, I expect to receive the same thing in return, and vice versa. So I think when you get into trying to be too much of a friend, it's kind of just like a parent relationship with their child. It's if the parent wants to be the friend too much and not be the authority figure at all, you end up with a lack of respect from the child. So I could see, not saying that students are children, but if the instructor is trying too hard to be the student's buddy, I've seen it go the way of the student not respecting that person as much, because sometimes people, I hate to break it to you guys, but people take kindness for weakness. So you need to make sure that you keep that in check. I'm not saying to be mean to your students, but you don't always have to be their buddy all the time. You can be the person in an instructor role, and at the end of the day, people pay good money to come in and learn, and people should be paying attention to what the instructor's showing and treating the instructor respectfully if the instructor is treating them respectfully. So that's a great question. We could go on and on with that, but that briefly scratches the surface of that there. Part 2, how should an upper belt train with a lower belt, or a young student working with an older student? I think as far as an upper belt training with a lower belt, the upper belt should be putting themselves in bad spots and allowing the lower belt to work. I am not impressed when I see, let's say, for example, a purple or a brown belt repeatedly tapping a white belt that's been training a couple of months. That does nothing for me. It doesn't impress me. I'm impressed when I see that person working with the lower belt, teaching them things. And also, if you're an upper belt and you put yourself in the situation of working from a bad spot with a newer person, it works twofold. You're going to improve yourself and that other person, because let's say, for example, I allow them to get me in side control. Then I'm being forced to work on my side control escapes, and they're learning how to apply better control. Let's use the example of a student. Let's say I tap somebody out, a newer student. I tap them out with the same thing, and then I have the opportunity to tap them out with the same thing again. I'm going to stop and show them how I keep catching them in that move. And the beautiful part about that is that now they've learned a counter, and the next time I try to get them in that move, it might not work, because they're going to learn how to defend it. And that in turn makes me have to take a different approach. If I want to get the same technique, I may have to set it up in a different way. And then I grow from the situation as well. So very rarely does a lower belt learn anything but how to become frustrated, or if it depends on how you think about it, but maybe they become mentally tough from getting beat up all the time. But the bottom line is they're not going to learn as much as if you took the time to work with them and help them more. All right, let's see. Part 3. How should a male student train with a female student? You should treat a female student with the same respect that you treat any male student. You should also make sure that you're not overly taking it easy on them, because that doesn't benefit them as much as you might think it does. It's not realistic. On the other side of the coin, you shouldn't be muscling them around and just constantly taking it to them. You definitely need to have a balance of not muscling and trying to be as technical as possible and allowing them to work. I think it's definitely beneficial for female students to train with the male students, as in a self-defense situation, more than likely it's going to be a bigger, stronger male person attacking them, so they need to know how to deal with that type of energy. So I would say you definitely don't want to take it too easy, and you need to make sure that you find that balance of pushing them and working with them and taking the opportunity to work on being more technical. This is definitely a great situation in which you can work on your technique, and you don't have to worry about some other guy trying to rip your head off and muscle you. So you can use it as an opportunity to really refine your technique and, pretty much treat them just like any other student in the respect of being respectful to them and helping them work and helping them grow. Next one. Should only students that compete work on the mental game? No, everybody should work on the mental game. You see my shirt here if you're watching the video, Fear is the Mind Killer. The mental aspect of training is huge, and when you're at the highest level, it's the part that separates separates the men from the boys, but separates somebody from being great to being elite. The elite level people in any professional sport will tell you that the mental aspect of the game is the part that takes them to that next level. So, no, I think people that don't compete should work on the mental aspect of the game, because it directly translates over to the mental aspect of your everyday life. So how you handle different situations, how you handle stress, how you talk to yourself. If you're talking to yourself negatively all the time, how's that going to manifest itself? What's that do to your confidence? So all of these things can be applied to everyday life, and all of the tools can be used to get great benefit off the mat as well as on the mat. To own and operate a successful academy, what are some of the key components that an owner must have in place? Man, I could talk on this one the entire time. The first thing to realize is just because you have mats in a space doesn't mean that you're going to have a successful academy. It takes a lot of work. Lots and lots of work, and a lot of unseen work. So, man, showing up and teaching the class, that's the easy part. All the hard part happens behind the scenes when you're not at the academy, when you're on your quote-unquote day off and you're working and you're constantly working on growing and improving the business. If you truly care, that's the type of mentality you have to have. So, I'm real blunt about it. I say just because you can open an academy doesn't necessarily mean you should open an academy. I think you need to have a mentor. It's incredibly important to have a mentor. I have a great mentor in Alan Moeller, who I've patterned a lot of my academy and my business aspect after. Who's helped me a tremendous amount. Love you, Alan. Can't thank you enough for everything you've done. So that's incredibly important, and you have to educate yourself on how to run a business. And don't get caught up, because a lot of people, I think because they don't understand the business aspect, then when their academy starts to struggle, they resort to some kind of cheesy, cheap methods of trying to stay afloat, like charging a ridiculous amount of money for belt testing and all these different little quick fixes through little weird fees. Just to make some quick cash to allow their academy to stay afloat. And I don't think everybody that does that necessarily has bad intentions. I just think they don't understand how to run a business and how to run a successful business and how much work they need to be doing to make that happen. So I think that they resort to those things just because they don't have that business knowledge. So I would say if you were going to open an academy, I would tell you have a mentor. Make sure that you are advertising ahead of time, like months ahead of time before you open. So you already have like some kind of promotional deal where you're already going to have a group of students ready to sign up when the doors open. And you don't just blindly go into it not having a student base. It's very, very important to have a student base to begin with, so that when you open the doors, you already have a base of 20, 30, 40 students right out the gate. So make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you're not going into debt to open your school, like taking out a huge loan if you don't have to. Try to have minimal expenses. Try to pay for as much of it out of pocket as you can. And sometimes that means waiting and not opening your academy as quick as you want to, because you got to sit back and save up that money and do it the right way. So those would be a couple tips. And I would say having a structured training environment really helps. Having rules in place, basic rules and guidelines for your students, and don't underprice yourself. Man, I see it all the time when people underprice themselves and charge way too little for their instruction and the value that they're giving people. You have to charge as much as you think the value of what you do provides. So in other words, I like to use the example of having two of the same car sitting next to each other, exact same model, exact same color. They look exactly the same. And one has a big sign in the window that says it's $15,000, and the other one has a sign in the window that says it's $2,000. Immediately what pops into our mind is that there must be something wrong with the one that says $2,000. It's been in an accident. Something says there's got to be a reason why it's so much cheaper than that other car. So I think people don't realize they kind of cut their nose off to spite their face when they make their tuition too cheap. So ultimately, you have to charge what you think is fair, but you also have to charge in a manner that reflects the type of value that you're giving your students. So, man, I could ramble on all day on this one. But that was a great group of 5 questions, Tony. Thank you for sending those in, because people were being really shy and not posting as many questions as I would like to have seen. So it was great having that on there, and I really appreciate everybody that took the time to write in. And I really look forward to doing one of these Q&A episodes again in the near future. Definitely fun. Remember, guys, like, none of us have all the answers. Okay, I don't have all the answers. I made a joke today during class. I said, I was talking about technique, and I said, ultimately, compared to somebody out there, we all suck. We all suck. There's somebody better than all of us out there. Somebody that does a certain move better than us. It's just a matter of perspective. So as soon as you start thinking you know everything, as soon as you start thinking that you have all the answers, that's when you're going to really realize how little you know. So I definitely encourage you to ask lots of questions, communicate. Man, communication is key. I have people that reach out to me all the time. You would not believe how many people message me that I don't even know on Facebook, who are asking me questions that pertain to issues they're having where they train. And the first thing I ask them is, well, have you talked to your instructor about that? And 99.9% say, well, no, I don't want my instructor to think I'm whining or this or that. I say, well, listen, how is your instructor supposed to know you're having an issue? Man, we can't read your minds. You have to talk to us. You need to let us know. You got to at least give us the benefit of the doubt of trying to fix the issue instead of getting to the point where maybe you're so frustrated that you quit. Like, communicate with your instructor. If you're having an issue, it needs to be brought to their attention. And if you have an instructor that doesn't do anything about it, you may want to rethink your training situation, because it all comes down from the top. The students are the greatest reflection of the instructor. So if that's being allowed to go on, and it continues to go on even after you talk to your instructor, then you really have some thinking to do. So ultimately, if we're going to take a message or a lesson away, man, communication is king. We need to have that communication in place. It needs to work both ways between student and instructor, so nothing's left up for interpretation. And that's really going to be the way that you keep great relationships within the academy and within the local jiu-jitsu community and the community abroad. I'm really proud that I have a good reputation within the jiu-jitsu community here locally, and I attribute that, man, to communication. Definitely being open and communicating, and never leaving anything up to interpretation. I think that's very important, that if you hear something, little whispers about something, someone's saying this or that, go talk to that person face to face and resolve the issue like grown-ups. That's what grown-ups do. So we need to make sure that's a part of our mentality, that we are communicating. We're not just sending a text or making a passive-aggressive post on Facebook that maybe or maybe isn't directed at somebody. Man, I'm a man. If I have an issue with you, I'm going to come and I'm going to talk to you. So you need to make sure that you're approaching your life and your jiu-jitsu life in that manner, and it's definitely going to benefit you. I promise this is going to benefit you, and you're going to be so happy that you did it. And with that, guys, that's going to end the Q&A episode. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Man, you can always send me questions. I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. My email is coach@fbjjonline.com. You can always email me there. And guys, I get a lot of people asking me, when are you going to come do a seminar in New York? When are you going to come here? When are you going to come there? Guys, encourage your instructors to reach out to me. If you say that you heard about it here on the podcast and have them mention that, I will give them a discount. I would love to come out and share my love and my passion for jiu-jitsu with you guys in person at your academy. Trying to get out to New York. I would love to see that place. And it's one of the few places now in the U.S. that I haven't been that I would really like to go. So, man, for the people that ask that, encourage your instructor to reach out to me, and I promise I'll give them a good discount, and I'll do an awesome seminar. All right, guys, I look forward to next time. Take care. Bye.